Hello there, this is Citi TV and this is a live coverage of the committee probing allegations in a censure motion against the finance minister. Earlier, the committee met the officials from the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, that is PIAC. Currently, before the committee as officials from the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. My name is Philip Nilate. Let's bring you that feed from Parliament.
Very well. Yes. So you are in receipt of the letter from the committee's clerk, right? Dated 15th November 2022. That letter invites you to address an issue that was raised before this committee. Evidence was laid on it. It is in respect of illegal payment of oil revenues into an offshore account or offshore accounts in flagrant violation of Article 176 of the 1992 Constitution. Are you aware about that?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Very well. And the evidence was led principally by the Honorable Minority Leader, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, and he relied on a finding that was made by the Public Interest and Accountability Committee in its 2021 and 22 reports. You are aware about those reports, are you not?
We are aware, sir.
Were the reports ever shared with GNPC?
They were shared, but we disagreed with the
Very well, we'll come to your disagreement, but I just want you to put it on record that the reports were shared with you. Now, in the report, there's a statement, a very categorical statement that was made. And he said that, and this was the evidence provided by the Honorable Minority Leader. He says, following the acquisition of 7% interest in the Jubilee and Juniboa, the 10 fields of GNPC in 2021, later ceded to its subsidiary Jubilee Holding Limited, made its lifting of 900, no, 9 million, is it 9 million? 900, yeah, the figure here is not correct. 900, thousand barrels on the Jubilee field in 2022, amounting to 100 million dollars. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. I mean, the number, you rounded off the number, but it is.
Very well. And so you can confirm that there was an acquisition of 7% interest in the Jubilee?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
And that was ceded to Jubilee Holdings Limited?
No, so I think probably I may have to give a bit of background. We need to explain the structure
very well,
so that we can put...
I want you to confirm the facts, and then you can then go ahead and explain to us.
Okay.
All right. So please go ahead.
So, Honorable Chair, what it is, and I think PIAC spoke about the acquisition, and I think there are some few issues that we need to clarify. The fact of the matter is that JOHL wasn't set up by GNPC. JOHL is just Jubilee Oil Holding Limited. GNPC did not set up JOHL. JOHL was set up by Anadako. And it was set up because Anadako decided to sell its stake in the Ghana assets, and reach agreement with Cosmos for Cosmos to purchase. Ghana government then made a submission that we wanted parts of that stake, and so after negotiation we agreed on 7%.
Right.
Yes. Now, what happened was they had a timeline. Typically with these M&As, you work according to strict timelines. So there was a timeline for consummation of that transaction. And because GNPC needed to go through the needed approval process, Anadako then decided to set up GOHL, carve out the 7%, hold for GNPC when we are ready for its acquisition. And then they went ahead and consummated that transaction with Cosmos. So when we got the necessary approvals and were ready, we had to buy Jubilee Oil Holding. So the structure of the transaction wasn't a GNPC defined structure. It was a structure that was defined by the seller, and we obviously had to buy the company. So what we bought was the company shares. We didn't buy. So I think to clarify what Piak was saying, we did not buy this. We didn't buy the stake or the participating interest in the company. We bought the company, which held the 7% of Jubilee and 10.
Okay. So where did you get the money to buy the company, the shares in the company?
So we wrote to Ministry of Finance to advance this money, a loan towards the purchase. And we're very clear that we're going to pay back the money.
Very well. Do you have the letter that you wrote to the Minister of Finance?
Yes, we have copies of the letter.
Okay. Can you make that available to the committee?
Yes, we'll do so, sir.
Good. No, we'll see the date from there. So the Ministry of Finance made an advance of funds to you for the acquisition, right?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
So was it a loan?
Yeah, it was a loan.
All right. Interest-free loan?
No, interest. We're going to pay an interest on it.
Okay, so do you have the exact terms of the loan in documentary form?
So we didn't sign an actual loan agreement, but the correspondence alluded to the fact that
yes, that can constitute a contract. The correspondence can result in a contract. Okay. Did you obtain any approvals from Parliament?
So we got approval from our sector ministry and obviously finance ministry. In our work program, we had indicated, because this whole divestiture of, or the sale of the Anadaku stake had been on the table for some time. I mean, COVID kind of interrupted. So in our 2021 work program, we had indicated that we were looking at acquiring part of the Anadaku stake, and that was contained. But obviously, we're not sure of the amount that we're going to pay for it.
So you merely stated that you were interested?
Yes, sir.
But you did not state how much you needed for purposes of the acquisition?
No, because we didn't even know how much it was going to cost.
Okay, so, and Parliament approved the work program without the specific amount being stated in the work program, right?
That's correct, Honor.
Okay. Now, in respect of the lifting of the oil, you've already confirmed that Jubilee Holdings lifted over 900,000 barrels of oil, right?
Honorable Chair, so in fact, even we had lifted in total, about $153 million.
Million barrels?
No, dollars.
Dollars.
I mean the value. I'm giving the value.
The value. Okay.
Yes. I mean, we consummated this transaction in October, and so because the assets were producing fields, we're lifting barrels.
Right.
So the arrangement that existed before we acquired the stake was a pooled transaction. So basically, what Anadaku was doing was pooling their barrels together with PetroAC and selling. So once we got the 7%, which we acquired the 7% of GOHL. No, sorry, we acquired GOHL, which held 7% in the field, an already producing field. Yeah. We were entitled to the barrels, so we got our share of the barrels that were sold by that pooled arrangement that existed. So,
so those barrels ordinarily would have come to GNPC, right?
No, it went to GOHL.
No. If you did not acquire Jubilee Holdings, those barrels of oil would have come to you?
No.
They would have
gone to whoever had it, whoever had acquired it.
Okay, but through the acquisition, okay, the barrels of oil lifted now belong to GOHL.
Yes.
GOHL.
Jubilee Oil Holdings.
Yes. Okay, I would always say Jubilee Holdings. Yes. Okay. And the monies were obviously paid directly to Jubilee Holdings, right?
Yes, Honorable Chair. Yeah.
Are those monies that odd fares have been paid into a petroleum holding fund?
Yes, so that's a point of departure, the area of disagreement. We believe that GOHL...
Who are you disagreeing with? You are departing from where? Point of departure. You asked you a question, so deal with it. Point of departure. You are departing from...
So what's PIAC? So I'm alluding to what PIAC said. So we disagree with PIAC's assertion that it should have been paid to...
So why? Can you explain to the committee why you disagree?
Yes, so Honorable Chair, as it was discussed during the PIAC testimony or submission, GOHL is 100% subsidiary of GNPC. We believe it's a company incorporated. It's a company registered under the Company Act, and obviously the terms and conditions, the constitution of GOHL is governed by the Company Act, and for that reason, 100% of the revenue cannot be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. The company must operate, and if at the end of the day it declares profit and the directors decide that dividend must be paid, that money is paid to GNPC, and that money paid, of course, will be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. So we believe that the GOHL is governed by the Company Act, not by the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. So my colleague will probably shed a bit of this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think PIAC made a number of assertions before this committee that I would like to clarify. First of all, I'd like to clarify how transfers are made in the industry. There are two ways in which you transfer assets to another company. Either you do it directly or indirectly. Directly is where you transfer the participating, a portion or all of the participating interest itself to the acquiring company. Indirectly is where you are transferring shares in the company that holds the participating interest to another company. And that is why you would see under the PRMA, when it talks about revenue due from the direct or indirect participation of the Republic. So in terms of the way we see the interpretation of Section 7 of the PRMA, PRMA talks about revenue due to the Republic from the direct or indirect participation. The operative word is due. What is due to a shareholder from its subsidiary? So it's revenue due from. And in determining what is due to a shareholder, you need to look at the Companies Act. And that is where we depart from PIAC in its interpretation. Because if we don't do that, then you end up having some absurdities. For instance, if GNPC doesn't take 100% and takes, say, 75% in a company, and you say revenue due should go into the PHF, what happens to the person who owns the 15%? Where are they going to get their share from? So when you look at the logic of the interpretation, and we are looking at it from both a legal standpoint and a commercial standpoint and an industry standpoint, we think that we should look at JOHL as a separate entity in light...
Wait a minute. We're dealing with the logic or we're
dealing with the law? And
yes. The logic and the law, you know what it is, so
yes,
we should be careful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, for the clarification. So, in our view, JOHL, and we are not saying that revenues from JOHL should not go into PHF. It's the form that it takes that I think we differ. We say that it's dividends that must go into the PHF. PIAC says that it's revenue from every lifting, which we think should not be the interpretation given to both the PRMA and the Companies Act.
Okay, so if someone were to say that the reason why you are not holding that interest directly is because you want to obviate the consequences of statutory compliance, what would be your answer to that.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think in this particular case, and I think it has been said already, the seller decided how they were going to sell their asset. This was not something that originated from GMPC. And when the GMPC law gives GMPC the right to acquire interest, but it doesn't say how these interests in what form they should take. And GMPC should be in a position to take advantage of such opportunities however they come. Otherwise, then GMPC will not be able to do business. In this particular case, the seller had decided that they were selling shares in a company that they own. So GMPC did not have any option as to how it would acquire the interest. And that is why GMPC acquired 100% of the interest in JOHL. So this was not one in which GMPC had any option as to decide how it acquired the interest.
Very well. Honorable KTM, Co-Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair. I entirely understand the concept, so I do not intend to trouble you. All I need to understand is that in all of this, what relates to the finance minister in terms of the allegation made against him? What is it about it?
I mean, as far as JOHL is concerned, I mean, the finance minister is not responsible for the revenues. I mean, obviously, we have to, at the end of the day, submit our financials, GRA. We have to pay whatever assessed tax that we need to pay. And let me say that in 2023, JOHL paid 17 million. 2021, I'm sorry, I'm 1 year ahead of. 2021, JOHL paid 17 million to GRA as tax on its operations. So, yeah, as far as the revenue is concerned, I don't think the finance minister has any direct, let me call it, control.
I read the GMPC Act, I read the Company Act, and the other acts under consideration. My understanding is entirely the same as the way you understand it, so I'll pass it on to my other colleagues.
Case, I mean, was any money paid into an offshore account? The 100 million, was it paid into an offshore account?
So Honorable Chair, I think the word offshore, when we use, I mean, for those who are bankers, I mean, you can even have an offshore account in Ghana. So I think the word, when we say offshore, sometimes I get a bit confused because the Bank of Ghana has certain categorizations of what you call it, foreign currency. And so what we call FCA have offshore account. But to the extent that the question relates to receipts from sale of crude, yeah, it was paid into an account held at Ghana International Bank in London.
Okay, and who made the payment?
So the buyer of the crude. So buyers of the crude, even in the case of PHF, the buyers of the crude pay directly into the PHF. So they pay directly into whichever account that you designate for them to pay.
Yeah. Very well. Okay. Honorable members, the witnesses are yours now. Yes. Honorable Samuel Okujeta Blakwa.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would like to find out why the GMPC was not in the capacity to pay for this JOHL transaction. Why did you have to ask the Finance Ministry to advance a loan facility to GMPC?
Honorable, I mean, GMPC simply did not have the money. I mean, I think we've had on occasions appear before some of the committees of Parliament to talk about indebtedness by some of the state agencies to GNPC. But the simple response is that we didn't have the resources to pay. Yeah.
So this loan agreement, which you say is largely based on correspondences between GMPC and the Finance Ministry, can you elucidate on the terms?
So the purchase price was 199, almost about 200 million. But because during the process of...
Please, cedis or dollars?
No, US dollars.
You see, because this is a house of record, if you can be exact, I'll be most grateful. We'll be most grateful.
It's
all right.
199. It's 199. Roughly $199 million.
What we have in our report here.
So I'm going to explain.
No. I'm saying that the figure as mentioned in here is exactly the 199 million. 199 million. Yeah. So yeah, sure.
So that was the purchase price. But because the assets we're producing, there were liftings and cash calls that were being made. So when we settled, and typically with most of these transactions, you need to then reconcile the figures. So you look at revenues that have been received, payments that have been made, and you net them off to come to the amount. So we ended up paying $164 million. 164,798.
So if I can have some clarity, the $164.7 million is what is contained in the PIAC report, which is available to us, page 9, the semi-annual report. But you indicate that you received $199 million from the Ministry of Finance. Can you be clear? Exactly, is it 199 we are dealing with or 164? Because if you look at the rendition of the PIAC report, it says that this 164.7 were monies advanced by the Ministry of Finance to GMPC. So what exactly did you receive? Is it 199 or 164.7? Just for our records.
So, Honorable, for the records, as I said, the actual cost of the 7% was $199 million. But as I explained earlier, because the assets are producing assets, their payments, their cash calls, and their revenues that were made during the period when negotiations were going on. So once we agreed and the share agreement was executed, we needed to do a reconciliation of payments that have been made on behalf of JOHL and receipts that have been made by JOHL. And so once you do that reconciliation, the net amount that we needed to pay was the 164. So I hope that clarifies the figures.
So can we know how much hit your account from the Ministry of Finance?
It's the 164. We paid 164. So that's the net cash. I needed to explain, because the 199 and the 164, if you don't have context and you hear about the headline price, probably some confusion can be created in the minds of people. So the actual cost of the 7% was $199 million. But once you do the reconciliation, the net amount paid by JOHL for JOHL acquisition was 164. So the actual cash outflow was the 164. To Anadaco for the 7%. Yeah.
Now, Mr. Chairman, the advance from the Ministry of Finance, why is it that in this whole transaction, Parliament was left out? There is no parliamentary approval for this transaction. And you do know that no Minister of Finance can release funds to any entity without parliamentary approval. Why is it that Parliament was left out?
You want to look at the question again. He is from GMPC, and you're asking why is the Finance Minister here?
No, but they have a legal department.
No. Why the Finance Minister? You should be asking the Finance Minister why is your signature nowhere, not them. They had the mandate.
No, because Parliament was left out. Oh, sure. There's no parliamentary approval.
But they can't come to Parliament. Can he come to Parliament?
No.
So we're saying that you can ask your question, but to put it directly to him, the responsibilities of a finance minister.
I'm not saying it was his responsibility.
So you say, why didn't the finance minister come in here?
No, I was just asking, why was Parliament left out?
Well, we say that question is overruled.
Okay, I'll rephrase.
Yeah, rephrase the question.
I'll rephrase the question. Can we understand from you? You made mention of your 2021 work program to Parliament. First of all, I was looking at the work program. I didn't see any. Do you have a copy here? Can you refer us to what exactly is in the 2021 work program?
I don't have a copy here, but we can make that available to you. I mean, we can make that available. As soon as I get to the office, I can make a copy available to you.
And are we to understand that by that work program, if we do find out, because I haven't seen any request to Parliament in that work program, I just want clarity. Are you suggesting that that work program constitutes a parliamentary approval?
No, not by any means. What I said is, beginning of the year, because the transactions were in discussion with Anadako and Cosmos to acquire the stake, we had put it in our work program that we're looking at acquiring a stake in the Anadako assets. But because the numbers had not been agreed and we're not even sure what value that was going to be put on it, we did not indicate a value for it. But we had a sentence saying that we're looking at acquiring that stake. Yes.
So no parliamentary approval. Let me move to the next one. I notice from the records I have
let's
here,
get it right. No parliamentary approval
for the finance minister's release of 164.7 million.
He is speaking on behalf of the finance minister.
No, I haven't said so. I just wanted our records to reflect that.
No. But how can you make that point when he is not involved?
No, he's just indicated that his work program, which he made reference to earlier, at the time it was early days. They didn't have any figures.
Let's get it right, because you have some members of the Energy Committee around your table. What are you saying? You're saying that the matter was not mentioned in your work program, or it's mentioned in the work program?
So, Honorable Chair, I think the earlier question had to do with the fact that there was no mention of acquisition in our work program. And I said we did. It is contained in our work program, but there were no figures put to it, which is different from, yes.
So there was no parliamentary approval for the acquisition, was there?
He's answered that one. He said that there was a mention of it in the work program to Parliament, to the committee.
Oh.
No, he's made that. He's very clear on that the figures were not, but there are two things, the figures and the fact of the acquisition.
Yeah.
So we knew about the fact of the acquisition, except that we didn't know about the figures. That's the point you're making.
The Honorable Chairman is not testifying before the committee. No. I think the witness should be allowed.
To take parliamentary notice of. We are aware of that.
I agree with you. I agree with you perfectly.
So how do you mean by
I agree with you that we can take parliamentary notice, okay, of matters stated in their work program, and that's why my earlier question was whether or not it was specifically stated in your work program and the amount was specified. That was the question I asked you.
Those are the matter you dealt with. So when you say that I am now testifying, I'm going to get you to withdraw or to rephrase.
Well, Chairman, can I proceed?
I apologize for that.
I would like to find out from GMPC, why did it take you 10 months? Is the Deputy Minister raising a point of order?
No, he's an honorable member of the committee.
Yes.
Chairman, I didn't hear you rule on the categorical assertion that was attributed by Honorable Kujetu to the witness to the effect that there was no parliamentary approval. He hasn't said so yet. So I think that statement should be expunged from the record.
No, it's been established that there is no parliamentary approval. I'm making a clear inference. Clear inference from the facts that are being presented. Do you have parliamentary approval? If you can show us.
Honorable members, order on the committee. Honorable Ablakwa, can you proceed with your questioning of the witness?
Actually, I think it's an important matter that I think we should address. Yeah, we should address it. He is quite clear in his mind, and he's put it on record that there was no approval. But let's find out, where should the approvals be coming from anyway? What kind of approvals are you talking about?
I'm talking about the release of the $164.7 million by the Minister of Finance. It's public funds. And the Minister of Finance cannot disperse public funds without parliamentary approval. The Constitution is very clear.
Sammy, that is not disputed. What I'm worried about is that why are we putting it to him and putting it on record that there is no approval?
So in all fairness, that question should be put to the Minister of Finance when he takes the witness stands tomorrow. Okay. So we'll disallow that question. I thought you were dealing with the acquisition, because the acquisition is something that lies, at the doorsteps of GMPC. But when it comes to the release of funds, that's a different matter altogether.
Well, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to establish that matter clearly. But I was proceeding to my next set of questions. The first one relates to the incorporation instruments I have here of JOHL. When it arrived in Ghana, 15th August 2022, it means that you operated for about 10 months without any incorporation in Ghana. Any reason for that?
So, Honorable Chair, the company was incorporated in Cayman Island, as we said, by Anadako. What we needed to do was to register the company as an external company in Ghana. And we needed to go through a KYC process. Between the period, our chief executive, Dr. Sapon, had to left, and we had a new chief executive. And so that arrangement took a bit of time to sort out. And that's why it took us quite some time. But we have since registered it as an external company in Ghana.
And the records I have here, can you confirm that the company's directors in Caymans, you changed from Dr. KK Sapon to Opoku Ashene Dankwa? Is that correct, please?
Yes, he's the new chief executive, yes.
And when was this effected, please?
I need to check the date, but he took over somewhere in April. Yes, he took over. So to give a bit of background, the original directors were Anadako directors. So once we acquired the company, we changed the directors from the Anadako directors to GMPC appointed directors. And then obviously when Dr. Sapon left the corporation, we had to replace him with the new chief executive.
What do you say to civil society organizations like Imani, ASEP, and others who have argued? Please.
Wait a minute.
No, it's...
Let me make my point.
No, Chair. Let me conclude the question.
No, wait a minute. I think we've understood among ourselves, the committee has made it quite clear, that we are dealing with a specific allegation made in Parliament against the Minister of Finance. It's here. Now you're talking about Imani. We're not dealing with allegations made by Imani. If your question is directed towards what the honourable members on the other side raised in Parliament, for which reason we are here, deal with that. Imani, we are not dealing with Imani here.
Well, Chair, I would still put the question through without mentioning the civil society organizations. There's a school of thought that this whole JOHL transaction amounts to an international transaction, which should have also been approved by Parliament. But once again, no parliamentary approval. How do you respond to that?
Honorable Chair, I mean, that's getting into an area where probably I lack the necessary, yes, probably my colleague.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. We take a different view from what the CSOs hold, because there have been cases that have ruled on what an international business transaction is. We have Clomega and GPHA, for instance, which makes a distinction between state-owned enterprises that are set up for commercial purposes and government. In this particular case, the transaction was between GMPC and not Anadarko, and not government and Anadarko. And GMPC, under those authorities, is not classified as government. So it is not an international business transaction requiring parliamentary approval. Thank you.
Mr. Co-Chair, I mean, on the specific point of the illegal, on the specific point of illegality, I think Sami put it neutrally. I don't think we should be neutral. It should be very clear what it is. The allegation, there were 7 or so allegations made in Parliament. You keep saying they are grounds. They are allegations on the basis of which the finance minister is to be censured if it is found effectively guilty. One of them is that he ensured that there were illegal payments of oil revenues into offshore accounts in flagrant violation of specific provision 176 of the Constitution. Sami says it's alleged. It's not alleged by any outsider. By Parliament, I mean, members, what do you call it? What is the name? The promoters, not so much about it. It's about the. So that's what we are looking at.
I now want to come to the vexed issue of capital gains tax. PIAC is arguing that Ghana has been shortchanged. We have lost a lot of money. Can we have your take on that?
It's not. But are you the witness? Yes. So no.
The chairman are here. We are capable of dealing with this matter.
Are you saying that the chairs are not knowledgeable enough to know the scope? No. Honorable Ejapa Mensah, you are totally out of order. You don't heckle the Honorable Ablakwa. I think you are heckling him, and that is grossly unfair. That is unfair. That is unfair. Please, Honorable Ablakwa.
Again, it's about David feels that he is heckled. Who can heckle you?
Let me commend the co-chairs for protecting me because I really came under heavy bombardment. So I hope my question is clear about the capital gains tax, which I'm sure you have seen in the PIAC report.
Yes, Honorable Chair, yes, we have, but GMPC doesn't have any role as far as tax is concerned. We can advise, I mean, if our expertise is required on specific areas of assessment, but ultimately it's the responsibility of GRE.
But I would have thought that JOHL is a subsidiary of GMPC.
Let me ask a question directly. Yeah. Let me ask a question directly. He wants to know, there has been an issue here. He wants to know whether it is true or not. There is some allegation, has been allegation that there doesn't appear to have been any capital gains paid. As far as you know, GMPC, has there been a payment of capital gains tax? Yes or no?
So, Honorable Chair, I know that some payments were made to Government of Ghana.
Full stop.
Yes.
Thank you.
By Anadarko, yes.
Okay.
Can we kindly be apprised of how much has been paid so far out of the $164.7 million? I'm referring to the acquisition amount from the Ministry of Finance.
Okay. So
yes, paid back to the Ministry of Finance.
Out of that amount, we have paid 60 million to Government of Ghana, and we intend to pay more when received from other liftings that we've made coming. Yes.
And again, I have been going through all the budget statements. It doesn't reflect in any documents in Parliament. Do you have any guidance in that direction? Any records of that payment?
Honorable Chair, if you can repeat your question, please.
Is there any record of the payment of $60 million?
Oh, yes.
Can you share with us? Because we don't have any record. I've gone through all the budget statements, even the media review. It doesn't reflect.
We can make copies to you, the SWIFT messages and transfers, that we can make those available to you. Yeah. And I'm sure Ministry of Finance, if the request is made to them, will confirm that they've received the 60 million from us.
My final question to you relates to what appears to indicate that this was not the original thinking of GNPC. If you look at page 9 of the PIAC report, it says that although the acquisitions were initially intended to be held by GNPC ex-Bloco, they are in fact being held by JOHL. My colleagues on the Mines and Energy Committee also have indicated that when you met them, you didn't give indication that this will be some permanent subsidiary and that ex-Bloco will be in charge of this whole transaction. What accounts for this change in policy? And is it a case that some of these institutions are feeling quite misled, that you appear to have misled them, or you are not particularly transparent in dealing with them? How do you respond to that?
Honorable Chair, we haven't misled anybody. We're still in the process of assigning the stake to ex-Bloco. So that original objective or original intent hasn't changed. As I said, the structure of the transaction wasn't dictated by GNPC. When we mentioned to our stakeholders and the other oversight bodies, we thought that we're going to buy the stake, not the company. Obviously, the structure changed and we had to buy the company. So we're going through the process. In fact, or indeed, the approval that we got from the Ministry of Energy was very specific, that it needed to be assigned to ex-Bloco. And the board of GNPC is going through the process of assigning that.
Thank you very much. Honorable
Chair, though I said finally, can we know what will happen to JOHL when you complete the process, just for the record?
It will be dissolved as a company.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Honorable Patrick Boma, do you have any questions for the witness?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied with the answers provided. Thank
Honorable Senator Achiman Rawlings.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. I would like to know, in your earlier submission, I think your manager of legal mentioned that GNPC had to take advantage of the opportunity however it presented itself. Does that mean that it was with a willingness to more or less overlook certain requirements in terms of a company having to be registered in Ghana before you could actually do this? Because from what we've been informed of so far, JOHL did not become registered until this year, which is 10 months after you started doing business with them. Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I said that within a certain context. What I said was that when these opportunities come, it's the seller that determines how they're going to sell their asset. GNPC doesn't decide how they're going to sell their asset. Now, in this particular context, and petroleum agreement has what we call, and what the seller would say, stabilization clauses that allowed them to do this within a certain framework. The new law is what has come in to say it has to be registered. Previously, it has to be incorporated in Ghana. Previously, you could be registered as an external company and operate in Ghana. These are petroleum agreements that came into being before the new law, 2016 Act 919. So when Adadako decided to structure the acquisition the way it did, it was operating under the old law, and the PA stabilizes the contract. So it's allowed to do that within the context of the circumstances that existed at the time that they signed on or the petroleum agreement was ratified. And as has been said, initially it was GMPC, the intention was for GMPC to actually acquire it directly, so the participating interest. But Anadarko structured it differently because of the circumstances at that time. So GMPC took that stake with the intention of transferring the stake to ex-local. But I think due to certain circumstances, GMPC was not able to do that immediately. But one of the reasons why GMPC went into this transaction was to increase reserves. And that has become a very, very important issue, not only for GMPC, but for government. And I think it's within that context that the Minister for Energy even approved the transaction in the first place. So I think we were looking at the priority of increasing reserves, also looking at the framework, obviously, but within the framework that Anadarko was operating, we think that they had the right to do what they did, and GMPC took on that interest with the intention of transferring to ex-local to comply with Ghana law.
Thank you. Would you be so kind as to give the committee an idea of the structure of JOHL compared to ex-local, because you keep referring to the fact that it has a different structure?
So when I talk about the different structure, it's just in terms of how it came into being. In terms of the structure of JOHL, GMPC is the majority shareholder of JOHL. It's also the majority shareholder of ex-local. So ex-local and JOHL are what we call affiliates. So they are related, but with GMPC holding 100% shareholding in both companies.
I'm getting a bit confused because you said majority shareholder. Now you're saying 100% shareholder.
Sorry,
which is
100% shareholding in both JOHL and ex-local.
Okay, because earlier on you mentioned that there was an issue with the shareholders and the dividends to the shareholders not being brought directly into the Petroleum Holding Fund because the shareholders cannot have that. More or less, you kind of implied that, correct?
Yes. So
okay,
what I said, if I could clarify, was that when you look at the PRMA, it says revenue due to the Republic from the direct or indirect participation. And we're talking about, and I said the important words, keywords there were revenue due. What is due a shareholder from its subsidiary? And that is determined by the Companies Act. And that says that it's the dividends from the subsidiary that goes to the shareholder. So that's the explanation that I gave when that question was posed.
Honorable Chair, if I can add to that, in terms of treatment, I mean, the revenues of ex-local will not be treated any different from that of JOHL as far as the MPC is concerned, because they are both, they are, what do you call it, 100% owned by GNPC, subsidiary of GNPC. So the same application.
They are both limited liability companies.
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Is that to say that when the transfer from JOHL happens to ex-local, the money will still not be put into the Petroleum Holding Fund? Is that what that means?
Directly, yes. It will still have to go in the form of dividends, because it's still, ex-local is still a subsidiary of GNPC. So the revenue that goes in will be the dividends.
Honorable Chair, if I can make this point, I think there's a lot of focus on revenue. Nobody is talking about cost. I mean, these assets come with huge costs, and probably to explain, you know.
But why do you say nobody is talking about? You already told us the acquisition cost.
No. I'm talking about the operating cost
of the company.
Of the company.
Well, you set up your company, you expect to operate it at some cost. Who doesn't know that?
Yeah, but because you see, when they talk about putting the revenue into PHF, nobody is talking about how we manage
we seem to accept that you're not making losses. So whatever it is, you pay your costs and there's some revenue to put somewhere. That's what I think the concentration is about, not your costs.
Honorable Chair, I mean, we find ourselves currently in a regime of high prices. If price fall, you can't be too sure. The other point also that I wanted to make
No,
is
say that again. Which one can't we be too sure about?
So I'm saying that GOHL, currently oil prices are high.
Yes.
And you could find yourself in a situation where oil prices could be not so high. And so you need to manage your costs and other things very well. But I think the point I wanted to make is that GOHL carries GNPC. You see, I think we need to distinguish between the stake that GNPC has in the operating fields and what GOHL holds. GOHL is part of the contractor party. GNPC is not part of the contractor party. So as far as the arrangement is concerned, GNPC is carried by GOHL. I mean, in effect, what I'm saying is that when there are cash calls, GOHL has to pay GNPC shares of the cash call before even GNPC gets money to pay. So in that regard, GOHL is not very different from Cosmos or Tallow or, for that matter, Petro SA. And I think that distinction needs to be made and made in very clear terms. Yeah.
Have any dividends been paid so far into the Petroleum Holding Fund to date from JOHL, and could you share with us?
The only thing that has been paid is income tax. Now that we've registered it in Ghana, we have up to the end of the year to put our financials together. The board will... I'm sorry. No dividend has been paid. Yeah.
Honorable Rollins, please go ahead.
Honorable Chair, the only reason why I needed to explain is that dividend is only paid when you do your financials, you declare profit, the directors then decide that they have to pay dividend. But that hasn't happened, so I thought I needed to give that explanation.
Would GMPC be in a position to give us a reconciliation statement with regards to the difference in price from the 199 million, which also finally became 164,798,691 $1 million?
Readily, we will do that. We'll give that to you.
Okay. Do you have the reconciliation statement?
But Mr. Co-Chairman, why would we be worried about that anyway? That's an advantage to the country. It was supposed to be 199. They did whatever computations, and then it came to 164.
It's in the interest of accountability and transparency.
You're worried that we got a reduced, rebated purchase price?
Honorable Chair, we make them available.
I know you can, but I'm just wondering if anybody's worried about the fact that it's been rebated and we're paying cheaper. Maybe suggest that we should have paid 200 million.
In fairness to the honorable members, testimony has been given that shows a difference, okay, of about 20-something million, right? So the documentary evidence regarding that, difference can be made available to the committee to confirm.
It's not 24 million paid by Ghana. It's 24 million that Ghana had for free.
Yes, but still, it is important that that is confirmed, to the committee. So that's fine. It's not a problem. Okay, Honorable Rollins, have you finished?
Yes, thank you.
Very well. Honorable Imedo, do you have a question? You have questions? All right, please go ahead. I'm surprised that you have questions.
Why?
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Sir, thank you very much for the explanation. I think you make things clearer. What I want to find out from you is that with this transaction of the JHOL, would you say that it has given GMPC any advantage?
Yeah, it has. We now part of the a joint operating agreement, the JOA. So we sit with the contractor party, so decision making and all other things, JOHL is party to it. And so long as they are subsidiary of GMPCs can influence some of the decisions that are made direct. So, and obviously there's capacity building and all the other things. So those are things that, yes.
Mr. Chairman, coaches, let me seek leave of you before I ask my question. Because I'm going to ask a question that borders on opinion, but permit my ignorance. I would want to understand things better. That's why I ask. It is not mischievous. If JHOL had not acquired the interest in which company is that? Anadaco. What would have happened? What would have been the situation? Thank you.
So, Honorable Chair, JOHL, and I'm being very careful here. GMPC bought JOHL. So, like we said earlier, JOHL was established by Anadaco. So, GMPC bought it. Obviously, if JOHL had not been established by Anadaco with a 7% carved out interest, it meant that Cosmos would have had all the stake of Anadaco. Yeah, they would have. Yeah, obviously, they would have done so.
Thank you very much. Honorable, I hear from.
Co-Chair, thank you very much. From the preliminary comment, you indicated clearly that the PIAC report was shared with you. However, you disagree with it. Now, PIAC report is now a public document. May I know what you have done to point out the contradictions?
Honorable Chair, we can only react to PIAC, and we sent I think PIAC themselves alluded to it that they disagree with our position as far as the treatment is concerned. So I think that's something that...
Do you have a copy of what you sent to PIAC in disagreement?
Yeah, we can send you. I think you read some of the reports that we sent to them. We can make available to you our report, or let me call it our comments to PIAC.
I said so because the co-chair said once GMPC is coming, you make those documents available for us.
It says they're available for co-chairs. So is it one of the...
In other words, your correspondence with PIAC on these matters. Yes, if you can make them available to the committee.
We will do so, Honorable Chair.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, the second question.
Mr. Speaker.
It is correct that oil was lifted amounting to 100,748,907.95 cents. That is United States dollars. And same was paid into international accounts in London, offshore accounts in London. Who holds these accounts in London?
So the accounts are held by JOHL. So so let me clarify this point. I think I said it earlier. Total revenue to date is 153 million. That's how much, in terms of receipts, how much we have gotten from sale of oil. Because I mentioned that we're pooling the cargoes. Out of that, we have paid roughly $147 million in terms of cash calls and taxes and other. Yes.
My question is simple regarding who hold the accounts.
Yes.
And you have answered
yes. Okay.
Now, you also indicated to the committee that the money for the acquisition of the 7% was a loan from Ministry of Finance at interest. How much was the interest rate?
I think that the number, I need to work out the interest, but it has up to additional $5.2 million.
The interest rate?
We need to work that out.
The interest rate, is it 2%,
No, I'm not
3%,
sure the
3%?
rates, but the amount is $5.2 million. Yes, so I need to work it out, but the interest amount is $5.2 million.
Do you have a document between you and the finance ministry?
There is.
To tender?
Yes.
Before us?
Yes.
To that effect?
Yes.
You also said Ministry of Energy has given you an approval. Do you have the approval letter?
Approval for... Yes, we do.
And you also said Parliament has approved the work program, which included the acquisition.
So, Honorable Chair, probably may need direction, and I'm being very careful. What I said was the acquisition, the intent was contained in our work program. There were no figures attached to it. So, to the extent that we made Parliament available of our intention, and Parliament did not...
You're seeking our direction and you're going ahead to answer the question.
Okay.
You've almost answered the question, so why not conclude?
Yeah, I think you should proceed because you are...
If I had asked, I would have said that you already answered it, but you have...
Please go ahead. Please go ahead and answer the question.
So, no, I was just saying that to the extent that it was contained in our work program and there were no issues with it, I mean, about the acquisition, yes.
And you promised to make the approval of the work program available to the committee?
I wouldn't have the approval. We submit our work program, and if there are issues, they are discussed with the select committee. We are not giving approval specifically as to Parliament. I mean, obviously, we'll be told that the committees...
We're going to understand, because as I said, you have senior members of the committee, the committee you report to in Parliament here on this table, so don't struggle much with that issue. Yeah? Okay. Yeah.
Very well. Honorable Ahia.
Mr. Chairman, I'm done.
Very well. We had earlier on decided that the Honorable Ejapa Mensah is conflicted and would not be allowed to ask any questions of the staff of GMPC. The witness he is deeply conflicted, and I won't be surprised if he was apprised of everything before he came here. But in the interest of fairness, we've decided that he should ask just one question of the witness.
This is
just one question.
Unilateral decision, but you have no party to this one. So
that's not true.
You bear the burden by yourself. I have no party to that.
Okay, Honorable Ejapa Mensah.
Mr. Chairman, I'll take the comment that you made as in jest, because
yes,
as a member of the committee, I reserve the right to ask questions.
Very well, very well.
I'm satisfied with the competent answers that have been provided by the members who represented GMPC.
I'm sure you will not fail to be satisfied.
Oh yes, indeed I am. Because I just wanted them to address this phraseology in the PIAC report, which suggests that the acquisition of the 7% interest in Jubilee and 10 by GMPC later ceded to its subsidiary. What would be their response to this assertion that indeed this was ceded to them, to JOHL? Yes. That's not what happened. So that's what I want them to clarify.
Very well. Yes, Mr. Dazi.
So, Honorable Chair, that's a wrong assertion. I mean, as we've explained, JOHL was already established by an ADACO with a 7%. We only bought the shares of that company. So that's a wrong assertion. And those are the things that the areas of departure disagreement that we have with PIAC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, Honorable Sama Blagwa, it looks like you have a follow-up question.
just to find out if this loan agreement between you and GMPC and the Finance Ministry, I'm still being.
Honorable Ablakwa, please concentrate on asking.
In line with Act 919, do we have any parliamentary approval on the agreement?
Yes, Mr. Dazi, do you have an answer to the question?
Honorable Chair, you know I explained earlier that we don't have a formal agreement corresponding, and you said legally that's a form of
yes,
yeah, but we haven't come to Parliament.
Well, in terms of the formation of contracts, you don't need, a contract in the four corners of a paper, but it's also a legitimate question to ask whether or not the transaction had parliamentary approval. Okay, the Minister of Finance will be here tomorrow. I believe that that question can be asked of him. So,
yeah, if you allow me, I was just relying on section 1015 of Act 919, which provides that any borrower exceeding the CD equivalent of 30 million United States dollars for the purpose of exploration, development, and production shall be approved by Parliament and shall be in consonance with the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815. So this is the basis for.
That's the basis for. Council to GMPC, can you answer that question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the time that we entered into this transaction, I think because of the way the transaction went, we didn't seek parliamentary approval, but we intended to do that.
At the time you intended to seek parliamentary approval, but could not because of the circumstances.
Yes.
All right. So it means that there is no parliamentary approval for that transaction.
For the loan.
The loan.
GMPC is taking, the government of Ghana is giving some money to GMPC to acquire. Mr. Jodaze, I'm wondering why you are not taking this opportunity to explain to the committee and to Ghana how GMPC is suffering from governments of this country. You don't want to explain anything? Governments.
Honorable Chair, I alluded to it, and I think as a member of the Mines and Energy Committee, we've made.
I know about this matter.
Yes,
so
and also to the Finance Committee about some other agencies' indebtedness to us.
Mr. Dazi, despite the help you are getting from my co-chair,
they didn't comply with any official loan agreement and anything from you. They just took your money. Now they're asking you where is your contract because you raised the money from somewhere. Those same people who have forced you know they have money. Now the question is, why didn't you come out with the contract? Yeah, okay. You've got to be fair to GMPC, be fair to GMPC.
Yes. Despite, as I was saying, Mr. Joseph Dazi, despite the fact that the co-chair is asking questions about the circumstances under which you operate as a statutory corporation, you would agree, wouldn't you, that this is a transaction that ought to have come to Parliament for approval?
Yeah, my colleague has alluded, yes, has agreed to that, so we will rectify that.
Very well. Thank you very much. Yes.
That is let's get to the two things right. Is that in terms of the acquisition itself or the financials?
It's a money advance to us by
government.
Yeah, by government. So post.
And you would have had the contract. The contract would have been between who and who?
Between us and Ministry of Finance.
The GMPC as a government entity, government corporation, and then government.
Yeah.
It's kind of on lend or something.
Yes, I will be guided by what the lawyers say in terms of what the actual wording and structure should be.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, very well. Honourable members, are there any other questions? Yes, Honourable Ahiafo.
Yeah. Honourable Co-Chair, he mentioned that some capital gain tax payment has been made, of which he is aware. How much was the capital gain tax that was made? No, he said he's aware.
Honourable Chair, I need to check the figure, but I know it's in the region of about 170 million. here, but we need to check and be very specific on the amount here.
Very well. Honourable members. Okay, Honourable Ajiman Rawlings.
Co-Chair, I'm just a little bit confused at the moment. Who has oversight over JOHL? Because a couple of the questions we've asked with regards to what JOHL is doing, GMPC has not been able to provide the information. That's why I just want a bit of clarity.
What information is that? What information do you need?
The specifics of tax that the...
No,
I didn't say
excuse me.
they had to pay.
In respect of let's get this clear, members of the committee. The capital gains tax was to be paid by Anadaco because it's Anadaco that made the gain from the sale of his capital asset. So that has to be made very clear. All right. So they will not be in a position to confirm whether or not it was paid because the tax liability was not imposed upon them. Right? Or is not to be imposed upon them by law. Right.
The person who made money,
there were a few other questions with regards to payments, which unfortunately we have not been able to get full details of, which is why I'm asking, who do we ask then? Because hence my generic question, who has oversight over JOHL and its activities?
But I would have thought that it depends specifically on the kind of payment you have in mind. If it's a payment by GMPC, they should be able to answer it for themselves. If it's a payment by the Ministry of Finance on behalf of Ghana, Ministry of Finance should be able to pay, explain for themselves. So we should be clear in our minds which ones we're talking about.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Yeah, just...
No, Honourable Kwame Nyimedu.
Just for clarity.
Yeah.
Okay.
I ask this for emphasis. The lawyer explains Section 7 of the Petroleum Revenue and the phrase she explains is revenue due, whether it's direct or indirect. Is it your assertion to actually make this committee believe that in the opinion of GMPC, no revenue was due to be paid, so far as Section 7 is concerned?
So,
should I
in terms of the
go
dividends,
go through it? Let me make it clearer. The PIAC report, the page 9, the semi-annual report.
2022 one.
Yes, sir. The page 9, paragraph, the last paragraph, talks about Section 7 of the PRMA, provides that all revenues due from the direct or indirect participation of the Republic in petroleum operations, including the carried and additional participating interest, be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. PIAC is convinced that the proceeds of liftings by JOHL forms part of Ghana's petroleum revenues and therefore should be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund. Now, you explain the phrase, as I have said, the revenues due. In your opinion, would you say that there was a revenue due which should have been paid but into this fund, or there was no revenue due? What is your take on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our take is that for the period that we are talking about, there's been no revenue due because the revenues that PIAC was referring to was from each lifting. And as we've explained, in relation to limited liability companies, we don't pay revenues to shareholder every time you sold a product. So our explanation is that there's been no revenue due. The revenue will be due after we have done our accounts and determined whether there's been profit, and then from that, dividends will be paid. So far, no, we haven't had any, there's no profit, and so no dividends are payable. It will be at the end of the year that a determination can be made as to whether we will be able to pay any dividends to GMPC.
Well, thank you very much. Do you have another question? Kwame?
Last question.
Very last.
In your view, therefore, anybody who says that the Ministry of Finance or the Minister of Finance had made illegal payments of oil revenues into offshore accounts in violation of the Constitution would not be speaking the truth. Is that correct?
Honourable Chair, I am not in a position to agree or disagree with that statement because I don't know.
Okay, let me make it clearer. If by this transaction, let me make it clearer.
No, she didn't say it was not clear.
Can I ask another
For
question?
her to be able to take a position.
Can I ask another question? Can I ask another question? What I want.
Very last one, seriously.
Right. What I want to say is that per the transaction of the JOHL with respect to the liftings, with this transaction alone, if any person concludes that the Minister of Finance, no, I'm specific, if the Minister of Finance had actually made illegal payments with respect to oil revenues, that person would not be speaking.
You see, the question is very argumentative. However, I get, the reason why you are asking the question, because the ground that we are investigating says that there was an illegal payment, okay, made of oil revenue. Right. Okay, so directly, Mr. Joseph Dazi, and if maybe Adjoa could assist in that respect. So the lifting was done by Jubilee Holdings. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, Honorable Chair.
Okay. And the 100 million constituted receipts of the sale of the oil. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And it was Jubilee Holdings that received the money.
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Was it Jubilee Holdings that paid it into an account?
So, as I explained, it's the lifter, the buyer who pays it into an account designated.
So, in this case, who was the buyer?
So,
do you have any information?
So, I think the 100 million referred, Tallow bought that cargo.
Okay, so it was Tallow that bought the oil.
Yes.
And Tallow subsequently paid 100 million into an account of Jubilee
specified by GOHL.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So that will be all for you.
Yes.
So, you didn't complete that. What I asked this.
Oh no, the opinion is not necessary.
Transaction illegal.
Oh, but why? You don't need to.
From what he has been talking about, what is the illegality about it? They have the oil. They sold it to what is the name company? Which is the name? Tallow. Tallow then were instructed to pay the money of the goods that they had bought into an account designated by them. Where is the criminality in this matter? That's what the co-chairman is trying to...
No. Honorable Katie, nobody has attributed criminality.
Well, what is the illegality? Illegality is criminality.
No, not every illegal act is criminal.
You
can violate a statute without criminal.
So let's get it right. What is the illegality on this? That's what I think co-chairman is...
No, we are not asking them for their opinion. We will form an opinion based upon the factual evidence they place before us. All right? Honorable members, I think we should bring an end to this session. Okay.
Chair, I thought there was an important outstanding issue from a response I received.
Yes.
On the violation of Act 919, Section 1015. The response is that they will comply. I just want to understand if that is allowed. I mean, can you comply after the fact? I thought that you must seek parliamentary approval before
execute this transaction.
Could retrospectively be sought, rather than we agree that we are going to.
By what provision?
This is not for us. This is for the speaker.
No, Act 919 is very clear.
This is for the speaker. If there's a breach on that, that is not why we are here. We are here under paragraph 3 or 4 of the allegation. Let's deal with that. If we have any other worries, we'll deal with that on the floor. Comprom?
Yes, okay.
Okay. Mr. Joseph Dazi and your team, thank you very much for attending upon the committee and testifying. Just in case we have any other issues that we need clarification for, we may have to call you back, either call you back or write to you formally for you to provide that information. But I thank you very much on behalf of my co-chair and the committee for your attendance upon the committee and for the evidence that and assistance you have provided to the committee. Thank you.
Co-chair, before they rise, GMPC. Yesterday it was Esploco. Then as I say, nobody seems to be able to pronounce the name. JHOLTK. They said that, look at it, GMPC. Fix this masters. We are tired. More so your committee in Parliament. We are tired. GMPC. Today GMPC. Tomorrow GMPC. 3 days GMPC.
And the impression could be created that
you thank them already. This is my comment.
Creating this,
you are creating
this so that you can circumvent the statutory obligations you have. All right.
That's all right. Yes. But fix these matters. Fix them once and for all, so sanity can prevail.
Okay. That's well noted, Chair. And we'll also send the additional information that you've requested. We'll make them available to you.
Very well.
We won't require all of them. Don't worry.
I thought you would add that it is for the ministers of state not to be leading them into temptation. The ministers direct policy. So I don't think that. I think we are
struggling a lot.
I think we are blaming the wrong guys.
And the deputy minister is here. He's part of
no, you're talking about him. You are not talking about Mufikuwa. You are not talking about Yeah, you would. To this and I support you 100%. On
the NDC side.
100%. But they started it.
Mr. Dazi, thank you very much. Thank you very much. You are discharged. Yes.
For the other, you remember, what is the name again? Press, media. Tomorrow is what, 10 o'clock? 10 o'clock. That's for your information. So you can leave now. Leave us alone.
Yes, we will be sitting at 10 a.m.
You can come at 9:30. We don't have any problem with that. Yeah.
Very well.
Mr. Chairman, he's telling you that you were late today. That's the meaning of the question.
You don't get this matter. Ask him.
I'm
always coming late.
Ask my colleague over here. She came and met me sitting in Parliament, and then she told me that he was looking for me. I was sitting in Parliament and waiting for him.
Ghana, Switzerland. Wesley girl scored. Sorry.
Sammy, can we conclude housekeeping exercise before you?